Deltarune is a game I've put countless hours into, to the point where it's no longer challenging. So, instead of taking the conventional approach of a challenge run by removing, say, a core mechanic, I instead chose to remove an entire character. I tried to beat Deltarune without ever using Ralsei. Here's how it went. Also, this is a new channel, so if you enjoy the video, then consider subscribing as it helps a lot. Anyway, let's begin with... After naming my beautiful creation after yours truly, I immediately took a power nap and entered the dark world. I dodged all of Lance's attacks, except for the ones that I didn't, and arrived in Castletown, where we met our little fluffy boy for the first time. Oh, and before we begin, I think that we should clarify the rules for this challenge. Rule number 1 is that during a battle, Ralsei cannot deal damage or contribute to the mercy bar of enemies. So simply speaking, this includes fighting as well as acts. Rule number 2 is that Ralsei is banned from using spells or defending, limiting him to only missing attacks in normal fights. But I thought that this alone would be too easy. So I took it one step further and added in a few bonus challenges that I would later regret. Anyway, bonus challenge number 1 is that consumable items not in the key items category can't be used. This means no free healing or TP from items like the tension gem or top kick. Bonus challenge number 2 is that no equipment can ever be used, meaning that we'll be stuck with all of the basic weaponry and armor for the entire game. The challenge ends when I've successfully defeated every boss in the game, including secret ones. After beating up Lancer and obtaining our first real party member, we met up with K Round. This mini-boss isn't difficult in the regular game, however, since we can't use the act Deep Bow as it requires Ralsei, this fight was just time consuming, and after enough bows, K Round was defeated and we were allowed to progress. Once Susie ditched us for Lancer and Chris faced off against Clover alone, we came to the first genuinely problematic fight. The fight with Susie and Lancer. In any other situation, this fight isn't difficult in the slightest. Just put Susie to sleep with the power of song, and convince Lancer to join your side. However, without the use of this act, fighting seems to be my only option. Now, you may be asking, why not just spam the spare button to waste Ralsei's turns and focus on using Chris? Well, that's a wonderful idea. However, in this chapter, the spare button still contributes to an invisible mercy bar, and so could not be used as it would break the rules of this challenge. Or so I thought. While editing this, I realized that in this mini-boss, and all other bosses, Ralsei can use spare to waste turns, since it has no effect on bosses or certain mini-bosses. Oh my god, this could have been so much easier. So, I was forced to miss all of Ralsei's attacks. Right. Fun fact, during this fight, even if you intentionally miss your attacks, Ralsei will still hit Susie. Why? I don't know, it's probably lore relevant. So, I loaded back up my save file and tried again, this time focusing Ralsei's attacks on Lancer, because if something doesn't work once, then you should obviously just try it again without changing a thing. But this time, Lancer just wasn't hit. It was like a miracle. It was like a miracle. With this newfound knowledge, we obliterated them, and we're finally off to the castle. After refusing to chew on some dirty moss and watching Susie beat up Lancer, we arrived at the first secret boss of the entire run, Jevil. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Deltarune, secret bosses are unique to each chapter, normally requiring specific steps to unlock. In Chapter 1, the player must collect 3 key pieces scattered across the Dark World. One comes from the shopkeeper, Shorm. One comes from a puzzle at the beginning of the game which I had solved earlier. And the last is found in a treasure chest at the end of a secret path. After obtaining all parts of the key and forging it together with Malleus, I could then use it on the prison door, finally giving us access to the fight. This was the first major roadblock of the run. Jevil, on his own, is a decently difficult boss, being the first secret boss in all of Deltarune and widely regarded as the most challenging fight in Chapter 1, beating him without Ralsei would not be easy. Due to the bonus challenges stopping me from using items and most spells, as well as heavily reducing my damage output, this boss fight became exponentially harder. Despite this, I was confident that I would defeat Jevil within the first few attempts, since I'd spent hours fighting this boss in the past. If you're unfamiliar with this boss, there are 2 ways to defeat most bosses in Deltarune: by fighting or by acting. By using Act to tire out or spare enemies, you can end the fight peacefully. However, most of these acts require Ralsei. This fight is unique though, as Chris can use the act Pirouette to tire Jevil out without Ralsei. This act gives a random effect based on which turn of the fight it is. These can be great or absolutely terrible, but regardless of the effect, this act will contribute towards tiring Jevil out. So, running entirely on overconfidence, I decided to try and challenge myself before realizing halfway through that in order to spare Jevil this way, you were required to use one of Ralsei's signature moves, Pacify, in order to put him to sleep at the end of this route. So, Mercy was off the table. On my next attempt, I took the violent path. While Chris and Susie dealt less than optimal damage thanks to an armor and weapon discrepancy, I kept pushing forward, and on my very first try with this tactic, I was able to... And on my very next try, So then on my first try, I whittled down Jevil's HP, survived his many attacks, and finally got past the first roadblock of the run, obtaining a Shadow Crystal and the Devil's Knife in the process. Which, because of the bonus challenges, have no actual use, but it was still cool to have. After defeating Jevil, there was only one last thing to do. The true final boss of Chapter 1, King. After healing up with a quick save point, I worked my way up to the throne room, encountering a few enemies in the process, and ignoring Susie. A lot. And reached the Dark Fountain to fight King, the last obstruction between me and success. As mentioned before, this fight can be won in one of 2 ways. The fastest way to defeat King was to use Chris and Susie's fusion act, Red Buster, dealing a massive 300 damage per hit in order to take him out. A big part of this fight, especially when lacking in consumables, is using Ralsei's dual heal fusion magic with Chris, or his signature heal prayer. However, that and every other source of healing was now off the table, meaning that we only had a certain number of hits before we lost. After narrowly avoiding damage multiple times for an absolutely flawless We defeated King with nothing but a few scratches, and sealed the Dark Fountain, successfully progressing to Chapter 2. By this point, the story had not yet required us to use Ralsei, and although the battles were grueling, these would be nothing compared to... If you made it this far and did enjoy the video, then please consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell to not miss part 2, which will be here, where things get hectic, to say the least. Unless it's not out yet, in which case the video is just something random. I don't know. Okay, bye. Please subscribe.